The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Jigsaw from 2017. But before we dive in, after the flurry of guest hosts that we've had recently, I just wanted to reach out and thank everybody who's been sharing our Instagram posts and such. At the top, I just want to mention Rhodey and Tom Nielsen. Congratulations. Chumps Love Insta. He's been sharing our stuff. As always, Gina, just thanks for sharing our podcast. It seems to be bringing some new people in, and we need help with all of this hurting. So thanks a lot, guys.
And just in general.
Yeah, I need help anyway. Absolutely.
Anyway,
yeah.
But glad you're enjoying it. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to be not shouting out into the void about Saw movies. But we'll see what happens with the next franchise. So, yeah. But thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. Anyway, this film, 2017, came out, 6 years after the previous one, correct? Mm-hmm. There's a long gap.
Yeah.
What went wrong, John? Not with this film. I'm just saying, what's up with the gap? We'll get into what went wrong.
Well, yeah, they said they were pretty much done with it. And then I know as early as 2016, even before 2017, that the two authors of the script had this sort of in motion. I think there's some rights issues or something, or getting it all off the ground. So there was some behind the scenes mumbo jumbo. Right. And then they finally went, hey, the studio went, hey, you know what's nice? Money. So what if we brought this thing back? And enough time has passed. People are like, there's these legacy sequels coming out. Mm-hmm. Why don't we just hop on that and bring back Jigsaw?
Yeah. What if we invested $10 or $11 million and made $90 million?
Yeah.
I think accounting wise, that works.
Pretty much. Yeah. And that's pretty much how it worked out, because they used $10 million budget, significantly lower than the last one, but not in 3D. But it made 103.
There you go. I mean, even when you do the whole double the budget for prints and advertising, as is the typical accounting goes, I mean, $85 million. Horror's back, baby.
Yeah.
as stupid internet headlines seem to say once a year when a horror movie makes a lot of money, they're just like, is horror back? It's like, horror always makes money.
Yeah, it's always been here. Yeah, you guys are just embarrassed and weird about it.
Exactly. So this was directed by the Spierig brothers. Are you familiar with those brothers?
No, I'm not
familiar with those brothers.
I don't.
One point?
No, I don't know. I don't think I've seen any of their movies. I'm familiar with, I know they exist. Daybreakers I've heard of, but I've never seen.
See, I was going to ask you, and I was embarrassed to ask you previous, and I was just like, let's just save this embarrassment for the actual podcast. I thought that we watched Daybreakers in an early COVID era bad movie club night.
No, I mean that sounds like something we would watch, but it's yeah.
And I was like, did I have too many COVID vodkas that night and just forgot that we watched Daybreakers or something like that? But I don't kind of black hole entire movies on that movie night. But but I was like, that seems like something that we would have watched.
It totally seems like something we would have watched, and I will admit that every time I think of that movie, I think of the cover for Ethan Hawke's Hamlet, which is not about vampires as far as I know. But when I was Daybreakers. Yeah, that Ethan Hawke movie. That is not the same Ethan Hawke movie.
Right.
But I haven't seen it, so who knows?
Okay. Well, guess you just got an idea for the next Bad Movie Night submission that I'm going to do.
I mean, it could be good, but based on this, who knows?
Who knows? But I think it's pretty well regarded from horror fans.
I think so. Yeah, it's at least idiosyncratic or kind of goofy enough that it's fun or people seem to enjoy.
Maybe I watched it another time. I don't remember. I was just like, I think I did watch Daybreakers, and then the other film with the gas mask and shotgun on the front of it. I should have the title in front of me.
Undead.
I do think I watched that, but years ago.
That's supposed to be good, and that's one of those that I have picked up and put that down so many times in a video store where I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do this one. Nah, I'm kind of tired of zombies. Oh yeah, I don't know. And I think it just recently came to Shudder or something like that. So I should check that out. I am curious.
Yeah, the modern equivalent to picking up and putting down, clicking more details. And menu out.
Right.
Doesn't have the same atmosphere.
Not the same thing.
But I guess that, people like the Spirit Brothers, evidently. I did a little digging on this, and like there were some Saw fans that were excited, not just about the return of their beloved franchise, the return of Tobin Bell in whatever dumb way they were going to shoehorn him in. And my goodness, dumb way this time. But some people were excited about the Spirit Brothers. Yeah. And I think that's cool. Whenever like somebody that's already beloved by the horror community, much like Scream recently with the Ready or Not guys came around to Scream, like that's exciting. That can get people kind of pumped up about a franchise that could be dead.
Unlike some of the previous franchises we've gone over, you've had basically a lot of the same people throughout it behind the camera. And years later, picking this back up. Oh, and a fresh new take on it, like some different points of view behind it. That could be pretty cool. That could be exactly what I'm looking for. Because maybe I don't want to, maybe I want a new Saw movie, but I don't want just another one of the same. But if you're a Saw fan, you probably do. Yeah. But still, it's worth getting excited about.
Yeah. And just that idea of if a studio is going to reinvigorate a franchise, they're probably going to have a bit of a pitch war. Like they're going to cast the net a little bit wide and just be like, thrill me, as my favorite horror movie detective says when he answers the telephone. But like they want to have something like placed at their feet, which is like the new fresh take on it. Right. Which makes you think they probably heard 20, 30 pitches or something like that. I don't know. That's a pure conjecture. And they went with this.
They sure did.
I did like reading some of the other vague ideas that the Spirit Brothers had, which was one was all outside instead of the claustrophobia of inside a warehouse. I'm not saying that would have worked, but that automatically piques my interest. Yeah. Would that have been like more of a Jason traps in the woods type of thing? Perhaps. I don't know. But like automatically that tells me that there's something new and different.
Yeah.
Involved here.
Well, it's almost like that immediately makes me think of, and some of it is also that I'm looking at the poster for Jigsaw, which features a very made up Tobin Bell. But that makes me think of the Joker in The Dark Knight, in that like he has this citywide thing that's freaking everyone out. That like, what if we did that with Jigsaw? What if we made that bigger? And would that be as good? I don't know, but it's certainly an interesting take on it.
It's certainly something that that we haven't seen before. It would have been citywide, and then in 2 movies after that, you could be like Jigsaw 11, back to the basics. Yeah, and then you put him back in the warehouse,
or back to school. He's going to college. He's going to engineering college.
Jigsaw goes to college.
It's crusty old Dean. Let me chop off his leg with piano wire.
Yeah. Make your choice, crusty old Dean. You've been failing expert students out. That kind of thing. But I don't know. Like I'm game for something different here, and the difference is that it takes place in a barn. Yeah, it had a slightly different atmosphere to it, but good God, it was still the same dungeon room.
Well, it has a little bit of the prequel curse, and in that the Star Wars prequels, in that like everyth's a lot nicer. Where it's like, and then when the reveal happens, it's like, well, that doesn't make any, why is that happening? Because in general, I do like, and seeing this new sort of like slick version, I do like the kind of crummy, more handmade feel of the older traps. Agreed. I think that added something to it, where some of these were too far removed from like, a person made this. They, didn't have that kind of, it didn't have the handmade love that Rusty stuff has, I guess.
Sure. Well, and that works on 2 levels for this franchise, where the further you get, the more polished it gets. And like a lot of horror fans will say they want the grubbier version. But for this makes even more sense. Like what you said, like, I want this to operate like somebody made this in the garage, not a wall of circular saw blades. Yeah,
with like a very artistically lit room and all this stuff. Or I mean, they're all artistically lit to it, but like it's very clean and neat looking, which is exciting. But it wouldn't bother me as much if the movie didn't play out how it plays out. Yeah, but in general, I kind of like it. While I do like a brighter, getting away from some of like the complete like grimy and dark stuff of it, I'm okay with a different look. I just don't necessarily love this look.
Yeah, that. That is the funny thing. What we always talk about in franchises: give something different to the fans. Will they like it or not? And they gave us something slightly different, and I don't think we liked it.
Well, they kind of gave us microwaved reheated Saw.
Yeah.
They just put it was like Thanksgiving leftovers or like the KFC bowl. They just put a bunch of stuff from Saw in a bowl and kind of reheated it and went like, yeah, here you go.
Well, it's not just here you go. It'll be like, you're gonna eat this, you fucking freaks. You're gonna eat this. You're gonna gobble it up. You're gonna gobble it up because you watch every horror movie and then you're gonna talk about it on a podcast.
Okay. We've gotten into a whole weird area here.
Right.
But in general, yes, I agree.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, so let's start this off. We've got the cops in hot pursuit of some guy running through a building. He runs up to the roof. He grabs a trigger of some sort, like a bomb trigger type of thing.
Yeah, it looks like a remote control for like a toy helicopter, but it's supposed to be a bomb trigger.
Yes.
It was one of those things where, like, right off the bat, I had to kind of stop and think because I got what I wanted, but is that what I wanted? There was like an actual car chase and not like the ridiculous, stupid thing from 1 and 2 when I just zoom on cars. But I was but you can't do that. You can't have actual cars. But they did. So good for them for being able to go outside and drive a car around
immediately.
Which, although allegedly for 2, I had heard that in 2, when they're driving the SWAT van outside, that they had to just speed up the film because the car would only go like 15 miles an hour.
That's
and
amazing.
The reason that is because the actor who was driving it left the emergency brake on.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is movie magic, baby. But this one is high speed chase that ends with a guy on a roof who finds a remote where there's an X on a girder and he grabs the remote.
He says,
"Can't stop it now. Nothing can stop it."
Our hero cop shows up in like a cool Mustang.
Oh,
which is pretty funny.
A bright red Mustang.
Red car. Good point.
Detective Cool Car.
Exactly. They have a standoff. His partner, I believe his name is Hunt, is instructed to blow up the remote if anything happens, which seems like kind of a fool's errand. Like you're giving me that job.
Yeah.
Clock starts, guy still dies, and he gets blown away by someone who shoots him in the heart instead of the trigger.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like everyone, there's a whole bunch of cops up there and they're supposed to, shoot the trigger and they just annihilate his hand. Yeah. And in the insanity of it, someone has shot him in the chest. And I like Halloran's reaction is just like, you guys, who shot him? Oh, you rascals.
The paperwork.
Yeah. So he's down in whatever game is now afoot.
Yeah, because we do see a clock somewhere start counting down. Clock starts ticking down in another room. A bunch of people wake up in a room with buckets on their head, chained to a wall. Loudspeaker comes on, and it sounds like Jigsaw. It sounds like John Kramer, and he says something to the effect of, "Salvation can be yours if you come clean, and a little bit of blood can go a long way." I didn't like the trap, but I like this idea of a Jigsaw trap.
If you are a person that does drinking games to movies, if you want to just take a belt anytime someone says Buckethead, you'll be dead.
I like that twice as much because that was one of the things that my dad used to call me when I was being a little like rascal around the house. You buckethead, that's a Midwestern swear word, or not even a swear word, but a term of endearment for a rascally child, a buckethead. So I was just like, hey, look, they're all bucketheads.
My dad used to call me that when he would chain me to saws.
Exactly.
But yeah, they have these buckets on their head and they're being dragged to their death, and they're all immediately like waking up, and the trap happens immediately. There's very little time for them to figure out what's going on. And one guy just does not wake up. He is just being drugged.
It kind of rules. I like that.
That was great.
That was so
good.
And
what I like here is that one of them, we find out, Anna, figures out like, oh, so I'm being drugged by this chain towards these saws. If I just cut myself a little bit on the saw, the green light on the bucket goes off. I can take it off and I'm free. And what does she do? Yeah. She immediately helps other people. This is a first in the Soniverse.
There you go.
This is another group trap like in 5 and 2. Yeah, but this is the first one where everyone immediately is like, all right, we got your back. Particularly, it's more like 5 in that like immediate traps, whereas 2 is like this house of horrors. 5 is more like you just wake up and traps are happening. But so they all are able to just cut themselves a little bit, except for Sleepy Man, who does not wake up. When they all get their heads, their buckets off, door opens behind where the saws are and they're able to go through, leaving behind Sleepy Man.
I think it's because I really enjoyed the past couple of films where people knew who Jigsaw was and that they were in a Jigsaw trap. It did register with me that all these people didn't say like, ah, shit, we're Jigsaw victims. And that'll obviously come into play later, but it did like that. I'm not saying like I saw everything play out necessarily, but that did register for me because I still like the idea that people live in a Jigsaw world, Material Girl, Jigsaw world.
Yeah, it's the Jigsaw's world. You're just living in it.
Exactly.
Yes, no, that caught my ear as well, because as soon as they're in the other room, they start talking about what's going on, and one of them refers to it as a game.
He said it was a game. Well, then I hope for all of our sakes that it is a game.
Well, yeah, why is that, sweetheart?
This game's gonna be won.
So the doors open into a giant room and the chains start pulling them ever forward, no dilly-dallying around. I'm glad that didn't extend through the entire trap thing, but I thought it was an interesting twist where you've got the whole like, don't shut the door or that starts the clock. Now you've just got an intensely violent, like you just better figure something out situation. That worked.
Yeah, you got out of this trap, but the trap's still going on. Like you got out of this phase of it. I thought that was kind of a neat take on it.
And they're in a barn. So for the first time, we're outside of a
basement,
a warehouse. And we're in a barn. We meet. We don't meet him, but we see Detective Holloway, and he says he's put this guy Ethan away twice in the past. Ethan is the man that they were chasing on the roof. They watch him in a hospital. It says he's still in a coma, and there's a bullet lodged in him. And I guess he's got a vendetta against this guy to some degree.
He is a repeat offender.
I did like this bit. There's this very fit woman getting ready to go on a jog. She runs underneath the bridge, and there's a full reveal of Buckethead guy hanging from the bridge underneath her, and all these gawkers turning around and looking. Yeah. So I guess the guy from the sleepy guy gets transported to the bridge.
Obviously, that's what happens.
Right. It took me a second, to be honest.
Yeah, it couldn't be anything else. But I did like that bit because you're following this person and she's running by all these people that are just like staring at something. And she finally starts figuring out, wait, what's going on? And turns around. I just thought that was a really neat constructed scene. How that was.
It was a real reveal. Yeah.
I know a lot. Yeah. It was very surprising that, this person that just died is now hanging from a bridge. Seemingly, who knows how close this place is, but
a scene apart, two scenes, the next morning, I'm not sure. So the morgue, in a morgue, we get a great morgue scene. Again, nobody's eating. Disappointing.
That's your first indication that things aren't on the level.
Yes. Right. There's no sandwiches. There's no turkey
I'm
dinner.
Still standing by this theory. It's never going to go away. Despite being proven wrong constantly, I'm still right.
I do want to see a scene where there's like 3 morgue workers working late on Christmas Eve and having Christmas dinner, chowing down on some like turkey and like dressing and stuff like that. Just like going to town on a full meal over a body. Yeah.
The turkey is carved like a corpse, like the chest is open.
Right. Yes. Kind of sounds like an SNL sketch. But okay, so in the morgue, they pull the bucket head out the face, which is pretty non-existent, which looks pretty great.
Like his face is carved almost like Sean William Scott in Final Destination. The way the piece of metal chops upward on his head. And it reveals like a very just cross section of the brain and that.
Right.
It's a neat looking thing, but then I'm also like, well, wait, what happened? Why is the bucket fine?
Right.
Doesn't matter. I mean, true. I have my concerns are bucket first. Maybe that's a fault on my end, but it was a really neat physical effect. Like I thought that was a really cool looking corpse.
Absolutely, yeah. They do discuss. This is the first hint. Kramer has been dead for 10 years now. So now we get a context for where in the timeline this all is and how this can't possibly be John Kramer. They find a thumb drive in the body. And when they insert it in the computer, of course, we get a Kramer's voice. The games have begun again. I will take care of these 4.
Yeah. In the scene, we are introduced to our 2 main characters.
Oh, yes.
Logan Nelson.
Lest I forget.
Well, I'd rather forget. Logan Nelson, played by Matt Passmore, who's the main autopsy man. We learn from Keith Hunt, the other detective, that he was in the war. His wife has died. He's doing okay. And his partner, or assistant rather, Eleanor Bonneville. That is a name that solves British mysteries. That does not belong in a Saw film. That is an old woman doddering around a village saying that the vicar did it.
Yeah. So meanwhile, back at the barn, Billy the puppet tricycles in. He's looking pretty snazzy.
Yeah, he's got neon eyes.
He's got a little bit of a makeover somehow. He just looks slick. Yeah, aka higher budget for this puppet. The chains start to go up again, and someone needs to confess something. They all have to have like a weird secret, or they will be hung by the chains going up into the ceiling. Again, pretty impressive engineering for just some guy, but okay.
They all start shouting out different things. One guy, Mitch, played by Mandela Van Peebles of that Van Peebles family.
Oh, of Van Peebles.
A third Van Peebles. Mm-hmm. He's like, I sold a bike to a kid and he crashed. But that's not my fault. And then someone's like, oh, my husband screwed up. Like that. Like no one's being that forthright about what's happening.
Right.
But as they get closer, the chains drag them closer. Mitch reaches out and grabs a tape player from the puppet that says "Play Me," and as soon as he grabs it, everything shuts off. The chains stop pulling them, but they're still connected to the ceiling, so there's still a possibility that they're going to be hung. And I did like there was a conversation with Rob in the last episode about are they going to keep doing tapes? And I was surprised because they're like, okay, well we have a thumb drive. Like that's Jigsaw 2.0. What's going on here?
Oh,
but then, but here's a tape. So I kind of like that they kept that going.
Right. Sure. Well, especially, God, if I think about the time jump, my head starts to hurt. Right? Yeah. I was
we'll save the scanners ending, head exploding to the
end. In addition to the chain stopping, syringes fall from the ceiling with numbers on it. And I just wrote in my notes right here, man, this is complicated.
Yeah.
Like, just like these aren't very straightforward traps right here. Like, again, maybe I was just thinking like, oh, I got to like make some notes so I know how to recall all this stuff. But it was like starting to get a little bit more complicated than just having a reverse bear trap on your face.
Well, because it's also like, it's not for the other ones, like following the example of 5. It's like those were traps. Okay, here's all of us encountering this one trap. Let's all talk and work it out. Where this was just like the trap is happening to them. And so they have to react. So there's less of figuring it out to the audience. It's more just like you're just caught up in the moment.
Right.
Less expository.
So the tape talks of one of the guys or one of the people being a purse snatcher. And there's a flashback where the hooded figure took a purse. It fell off into the street. The person that they're stealing the purse from has an asthma attack immediately right there. And there is an asthma inhaler on the ground.
It's like when they dump the purse out, there's an asthma inhaler in there.
They take a moment and just not give the person the asthma inhaler. So I guess it's the idea is that they committed murder right there.
Yeah.
By not giving a person an inhaler. Because everybody knows in movies, if there's an asthma inhaler shown in a close-up, whoever owns that thing is fucking dead. No matter what.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason why you show an inhaler unless somebody won't get that inhaler later.
And it's
name me one.
I challenge you, audience.
Name me one.
No, I got nothing. I'm not up on my inhaler movies.
Right.
This one kind of was starting to propel me out of the movie because first of all, how would he know like what this specific instance that happened? Also, the person decided to get up and run after them. They weren't like, I'm having an asthma attack and then this person stole the purse. How would he know the exact amount of money stolen? And then I like that it's like, well, one of you, and that in the flashback, it's clearly Carly. Like they don't let it play out at all. And I think this is something that happens repeatedly in this movie where it's like they don't let this mystery play out. They're just like, oh yeah, it was you. Audience, it was this one. Don't worry about it. They'll figure it out. But yeah, so immediately we all know it's Carly. But the people in the trap eventually figure it out. And Ryan, who's already proved himself to be just a giant jackass. He's our British reporter in this one. He is as a person fundamentally worse. But I like him more than the British reporter still.
There was something about watching him where I was just like, Except for the dumb line of, well, that's creepy when Billy the Puppet came out, because that I think you and I share that same frustration of that, like, let's undercut any tension that could be here with a tossed off joke. I found him a little bit easier to take down than British Reporter.
And I don't, I think some of that's a credit to Paul Bronstein that plays him. You can see why he would be able to get away with being such a shithead that he is. But he's still deeply unlikable. But anyway, he's like, okay, there's 3 syringes. The syringes have numbers on them. And Jigsaw tells them that roundabout comes to like, what's a life worth to you? And one of the numbers on there, on one of them is 3.53, which is the amount of money that Carly took from the purse. Right. Again, how do we know that? Also, weird thing on Amazon where I watch this, the subtitles said 355. So inflation, I guess. I don't know.
I was going to say Amazon has their 2% or 2 cent markup.
I got to get my beak wet. It says
Bezos is in there. Even in Jigsaw.
Yeah, terrible.
So somebody's going to come after Bezos next and be like, you gained 2 cents on that, Jeff.
What's a life is worth 2 cents to Jeff Bezos? That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, that we can all get behind. Yeah, absolutely.
But so he's trying to he's like, you need to take this. And the thing is that one of the syringes is full of saline. One of the syringes is an antidote to a poison that this person has been injected with. Right. And the other is a whole bunch of acid. Like the burn away kind, not the see God kind.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's okay. We know it's the 353 one. You got to take this. She's like, absolutely not. I'm not taking it. That could be acid. He could be trying to kill me. I'm not doing it. Because he's not doing it, they all start getting hung from the chains. And then Ryan takes the initiative and stabs them all into her neck, all into Carly's neck. And weirdly enough, it kills her.
All 3 chemicals go into her. And there's like kind of a fun, like face pulsating scene and stuff like that. A little bit of face melting. I was hoping for a head exploding. Here, like more of the aforementioned street trash and some splats as we discussed, but it was a little underwhelming. I kind of wanted a little bit more if we're injecting 3 different chemicals into a person's face in a small movie.
And so the question immediately becomes, well, is he going to punish Ryan for murdering Carly?
True.
Or does the fact that he saved Carly from the poison cancel that out?
Right.
It's like, well, okay, so you gave her the acid, but you also you did what you were supposed to do, so I can't be mad. I don't know. That's up for Jigsaw to decide.
That's the learning on a curve. As he
needs to keep him alive because otherwise the other traps don't work.
And of course, on the inside of the syringes, there's other numbers for the combination lock to the exit. Man, this movie seems to be even more chock full of forensic scenes than some of the ones that we've complained about in the past. I feel like the beginning 2/3 of our heroes are all in this morgue just talking forensic babble.
They lean heavily on the police procedural part of this. And while I liked that element of it to a point in the first 2 Saws, where it's a little bit more of like a thriller kind of thing. By this point, it's a little old. And particularly a lot of the technobabble, isn't that exciting. And I think some of it's just that these characters aren't that exciting.
Right.
And you're kind of waiting because while this is a brand new direction, you're just like, well, the last one ended with, pretty big like cliffhanger reveal thing. So where's Dr. Gordo? Like is this going to happen? What's going on here? But, pretty quickly I went, okay, well, this isn't going to be, they wouldn't hide who's Dr. It's been Dr. Gordon. They're not going to hide that the whole time. That would be very silly.
Sure.
So I kind of went, okay, well, that's just not happening. We'll find him maybe in the next movie or something
Yeah. And they do somehow match that it's John Kramer's voice on the tape.
They inverted the algorithm.
Oh, right.
They know to do that now.
My favorite technical mumbo jumbo from these. So the 3 people who are left in the barn, there's a new room, there's a window peering out, there's a countryside somewhere. And, again, looking for something new in a Saw film. That's the first time we get to look out on a beautiful prairie. I'm trying to give it what it's got here. Ryan starts, listing off his sins at this point.
Sold bad mortgages, sold good coke, cheated on my taxes, cheated on my wife, both of them. So, nothing that bad.
And then the woman, Anne, I believe, confesses that I think at this point, her sin is that her husband rolled over and suffocated her newborn, which comes into play later.
Yeah, husband fell asleep, rolled over on a baby. I was surprised by how they did that because it's this overhead shot of the husband like sleeping on his side, and then the baby and the husband starts to like roll over as the camera like pans up. And I thought that was kind of a neat way to do that because I was kind of shocked. It's like, oh, you actually showed me that. That's surprising, but it was tastefully done. You could argue this is not a Joe D'Amato movie,
right? Yeah, his name is Ryan. Yeah, Ryan tries to break down the door that says "Do not enter." There's a whole thing about you got to follow the rules, etc. Because he doesn't follow the rules, his leg like slips through the floor, which collapses. And like piano wires type of deal start pinching and twisting his leg. Yeah. They reach for a tape recorder that's under the floorboards. Mitch pulls it in. And I do love this, like, you play it. No, you play it. Like, this idea that somebody else is like, this is your trap. It's not me.
Yeah. If I play it, it's on me. Yeah. And like that. Right. Maybe it's still Wishmash in the back of my head, but like the piano wire stuff, like really got him to start tightening around his leg. I'm just like, because it's three different ones. And it's one of those, like, how did you know he was going to step right there? Fine, whatever. You can't watch a Saw movie and think about that stuff. But as soon as it started tying around his leg, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad. And
yeah, it's not just one.
It's three.
It's three of them.
But meanwhile, during this whole thing, they find the body of the acid blood woman that has apparently been like thrown off a roof. They think it's like a jumper or something. Like I wasn't really clear on that. Then Halloran and Hunt show up and they're talking about like that maybe someone threw her off a roof, but they're like, well, that doesn't seem like something John Kramer would do.
Sounds like something that Hoffman would do.
Yeah, melted face, whatever. They're like, oh. Then there's a note that says, then there were three. And I go, well, this can't possibly be good.
There is a little bit about how Logan was in Fallujah and he was taking capture. And there's a moment where I believe this is the moment where it shows him the back of his, he has his shirt off and there's like all these scars on his back. Like, oh, he was in Fallujah.
Well, yeah, but he was fighting, he got captured by the Taliban in Fallujah. Mm-hmm. We were fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan. Whatever. Yeah. American audiences, they don't, at that point, they've largely forgotten the Iraq War.
That's true. It doesn't matter. Like, were we in Iraq? When
that could be. Iraq? Oh, in the 90s, right. Yeah. We've just memory hold the rest of that. So, so we know, because this got me thinking too, that none of that has never been acknowledged in the other Saw movies. For as like, we talked about them being the sort of reaction to 9/11 and the American mindset or whatever.
Oh, sure.
That at no point did that ever get addressed in terms of like wrongs committed to people. Mm-hmm. We went from just this internal stuff to be like, the health insurance company that realizing that like, oh yeah, that was never really touched upon, that there might be some element of this. And that's just, it's not good or bad that they did that. I just think that's interesting that it was never.
Yeah, certainly.
That it was sort of timeless in that way. Like it didn't address that this was the era we were living in necessarily.
Right. So that's the first time that they acknowledged that.
Yeah, that there was,
and it's just a little bit tossed off.
It's just to give you some background about our protagonist.
So our other two victims back at the barn make it into a silo, and they start jumping up for a remote that is suspended by a rope. As soon as they pull down the remote, of course the door closes because of course it does. They press play. And Billy appears on a TV that's mounted in the grain silo, which for some reason that made me laugh. That Jigsaw put up a TV inside a grain silo.
Well, he put up a TV in there, and then under the deck or under the floor where Ryan has crashed through with his foot, because Ryan is still trapped. Yeah. And this was like classic horror movie thing where the door to the silo is open, and Mitch goes in. And then Anna goes in, and it's like, you guys have experienced multiple traps at this point. And you're like, oh, in close space? Yeah, let me just peek right in there. Let me just scooch by you.
Right.
What are you doing? And sure enough, the door closes. And Jigsaw, Billy in crisp HD. And this is something that drove me nuts. And this is very nitpicky, but it's from a technical side of things, is that when you're doing like crappy VHS stuff, like the idea of like fuzz and like bad tape or something, like that's just like from use of the tape. Like that's a thing that exists to me, it's like to have that kind of the digital fuck up stuff that's happening.
Oh, right.
Like you put that in there. Like you made that happen. Like you used a filter from Video Hive or something. Yeah.
Creepy.
And I'm like, that just feels less cool. And, personally made, it's distances it.
Right.
But that's just my own point of view from my background. But it does look like super fancy compared to his other videos.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, he's in the digital age now, man.
That's true. He absolutely is.
Ryan needs to free himself to free them. Grain starts filling up in the silo, and my first thought was better than pig guts, I suppose.
I suppose, yeah.
I'd rather drown by graining than pig guts, personally. The detective bugs our Eleanor doctor and asks if she's one of those kinky types. Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Well,
where was she on the night of the murder? Home. Yeah,
and that's as Logan points out, like that's your evidence that she might be involved, is that she was a single woman home alone, because they're not sure. They're starting to figure out who could possibly be behind these, and is thinking about her because she seems kind of freaky because she's got multiple ear piercings and a tattoo sleeve on one arm, and maybe it's just sort of my Portlandness, but I'm like, that's not a big deal, and why are we doing this in 2017? Like that's edgy and crazy. Yeah. It's like, maybe in Wichita, Kansas, like that'd still be like wild.
Even
I don't think.
I feel like that's so.
Yeah, like and they're like the piercings they have aren't like if she was piercing through the face, all this stuff, maybe. But this is like she just has a bunch of earrings on her ear, and it's like that's fine,
right?
And because Halloran's is definitely being a creep. I like how also he's like got cool detective garb, like just the vest. And tie.
Oh, I definitely noticed the vest as soon as he rolled up. I was just like, because I can't decide if I like vests like that, but he's not really making
it's one of those things where it's like the vest itself isn't the problem. It's the kind of person that wears the vest. Oh, if fedoras didn't have the reputation they did, I might try to wear a brimmed hat. But it's never going to happen,
right?
Because that's not until I get like old enough that people are like, all right, that guy's just weird.
All right, he's a hat guy now.
But it was driving me nuts because Halloran, played by Callum Keith Rennie, but I like him. He is properly sleazy as Halloran. Like it's a big, ridiculously written character, but I think he does it well.
They start going over the Jigsaw rules. There's some tossing around of darknet stuff, which always makes me kind of laugh because somebody's into the computers when they're into the
because
darknet.
that's the website for Jigsaw fans is Jigsaw Rules and.
Yes. Yeah. And
I like that it's like that was really hard to find. Like that's like looking up Hansen sucks. Like that's the most like basic search. Like Jigsaw Rules. Right there.
But is it his rules or does he?
That's
rule,
true. It's plausible deniability. It's like no, this is just we're trying to do research on what kind of person he was versus like no, Jigsaw kicks ass, bro.
He rules, and this is obviously they're just pressing her as a red herring like crazy. Right around this time, they do find out that there's more forensics, and the blood underneath the fingernails of the first victim is none other than John Kramer's. But oh my God, he's been dead.
Yeah.
For a decade.
I like the fancy lab they're in too when they find that out. Like it's with the lit tables or whatever. That's very like it reminded me of the mortuary lab or whatever in Hannibal. Like I just had this very sort of stylish look to it.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Also around this time, the Munson, who was shot at the beginning of the movie, is abducted from the hospital where he's been in a coma.
Oh, right.
A figure shows up and injects some stuff into his IV bag. And then while the cop that's watching him is sleeping and is able to sneak him away. So they think maybe he's in on it.
And there's a long, I get that you really need to build suspense with this kind of scene, but there's a long protracted scene of Ryan. I don't know why, but he just can't cut his own leg off. But the idea
why he has a problem severing his own leg in immense amount of pain. I don't know.
In 3 ways. But yeah, he just can't pull the lever to sever his own leg. And finally, I did like this bit though, because the grain stops And then just a shitload of weird random bladed objects start getting tossed into the silo.
Yeah, they start just like rolling down the chute.
That was funny.
It was hilarious because it just like kept happening. One of them, Mitch immediately like takes one in the shoulder. Like he's like, later, like does it effective later in the thing. He's just like, whatever. But yeah, it's
a pitchfork, a little knife, like an axe.
But it's also one of those like, how did you plan for this? How did you plan that they would be right in the same spot? Because it's not just like a couple of things. It's saw blades. It's knives. It's just someone up there is just dumping color. The guy from Final Destination 2 is just dumping all his old hook hands. Like it's it's wonderful. It's just ridiculous.
That was great. Yeah. Ryan finally pulls a lever and his leg is cut to pieces. You could say that was his last resort. I don't know. But,
oh man, I'm so bad. I had to think about that, and when I'm so bad. Well, I'm so bad. I did think about that. Like, that's good. Good work.
It was his last resort. Yes. The grain falls out and lets them free at the end there. So in a drastic changeover, Logan finds Eleanor at a bar alone because you know those single freaky women with 5 earrings, they drink alone at the bar. I did that last week in New York when I didn't want to go home right away. I had a nightcap and a nice bar and just like sat and chatted.
What murders are you responsible for?
Yeah, I guess I'm a Jigsaw guy. Anyway, she confesses that when Buckethead was strung up, she was at her studio and she takes Logan to see her studio. The cop follows behind. And she has a whole bunch of jigsaw traps.
Eleanor? What is this?
Hey, a girl's gotta have a hobby.
A hobby? Is that what you call it? How about a stamp collection? That's a hobby.
And the big thing is she built a trap based on John's blueprints before that was like, I guess, an original trap. What was the idea behind this? Like it was before the others?
Well, the idea was these blueprints were for a trap no one had ever found. So like there's no indication it was ever used. And it's this big funnel with sort of a spiral inside. There's a box that filled up with water from 5. Yep. There's the trap, the chest, the angel trap that gets Dina Meyer. So cool. It's just neat. But her whole thing is like, I'm kind of fascinated by them, and I've been building these traps because I think they're neat. I'm kind of a fangirl. I've not murdered anyone though, so I lied because this is going to incriminate me. But this is all just a thing I'm interested in. I don't want to kill people. Yeah,
I'm a big old saw head. That's it.
Which I like this element of bringing the fans along, of being like having a fan be a character. With being a fan of the series, be a character where it's like, well, this is someone that's just way into Jigsaw. It's normal to be into Jigsaw. Please come see our movie.
A few years later, she would have a podcast about it. She would have a true crime podcast about the murders of Jigsaw and all that kind of thing. Certainly.
There's got to be like just such a industry around that, which would make a fascinating movie, but not one that they've done.
Evidently, news is getting out of more murders. And the commissioner wants to see Jigsaw's remains because it's an election year. That kind of cracked me up, actually, because that's so cynical that I would believe that would actually happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That it's just like, no, crime's under control. It's just this not like, let's just do this. I need people to just stop freaking out about it. Let's dig up the bodies.
Let's exhume a body, which is and I understand that in the world of this movie, in the writing of this movie, all of us as viewers are just like, well, we know he's dead. Like, the proof would be in the body. But the writing is clever enough here to be cynical enough to just be like, yeah, some police commissioner would just do this stunt.
Right. Yeah. It's just a political thing. Yeah. And it just made me think of the various behind the scenes political machinations of Crystal Lake or Forest Grove or whatever they changed the name to. The mayor is pissed because Jason can't possibly be alive in 5. His body was ashes. And then, in 6, they bothered to exhume him. And they're going to dig up Jigsaw's corpse.
Mitch finds a tape recorder with his name on it back at the barn. As soon as he hits play, he gets hauled up by his ankles because, of course, these things are very well targeted. Jigsaw's nephew was who bought the motorcycle from him with the faulty brakes, which just made me laugh. I'm just like, good grief, you guys.
Yeah, because we learned that it wasn't just that the guy couldn't handle the bike. It's that he sold him a bike with faulty brakes. So Jigsaw coming after Craigslist scammers.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. How does he find that? I mean, I guess he would know that it was his nephew or whatever.
Well, how did he find out that it was his nephew? No, I think,
Right.
well, it's one of those things because you see in a flashback that someone has, that the kid on the bike can't stop. And so he drives in front of a truck, and the truck smashes the bike or splats the bike. So it's like, well, I mean, was the bike destroyed enough? You can still tell that? I guess so, because he knows that the brakes were faulty and that Mitch is responsible.
Just seems like a long way to go.
That's Jigsaw, baby.
Yeah. So, of course, he gets lowered into the trap that we saw earlier.
Yes.
The big spirally thing. Now, I admit, I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of numb to these movies at this point. I didn't pick up on this for the big twist in the end. I was just like, whatever. That's the trap. I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah.
Like I should have.
But yeah, so you see the trap in motion, and it spins around. It's sort of like a blender. And so my first thought was Jigsaw. I got this idea working at Jamba Juice, and just him having to work at Jamba Juice and being like, Jamba.
I did put in my notes that the guy gets absolutely pureed.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
He gets like lowered down into this like saw thing. But like, I guess like if you could have gotten out of that trap, he just would have had to like leave his arm extended or
basically,
something like that.
Because the idea, the trap is being spun by the motorcycle. Jigsaw has rebuilt the motorcycle, and the spinning wheel is powering the trap. It's spinning it around as Mitch is being lowered into it. And at the bottom is the brake lever. And so if he can just reach the brake lever, it'll stop the trap. He's screaming, hooting and hollering, and Anna, in like the first time it seems like someone has done this, grabs a pole, hops up to where the bike is, and jams it into the wheel. Yeah, so it stops. And then he's like, oh my God, thank God. Thank God you did this. Oh my God. Thank you for doing this, stopping the trap. I'm not going to grab the brake lever. Why would I need to grab the brake lever? You stopped the trap. The trap is totally stopped. Oh my gosh. I'm going to take this time to thank you for stopping the trap. And then it starts right back up again because it throws away the bar, and he just...
Because it breaks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It like the pipe cracks, flies out, thing starts back up and just purees him.
Yeah.
I admire the subtlety that they didn't focus on it, but the flayed body gets like crapped out the bottom. And you see it like in the foreground, but it's like out of focus.
Yes.
And I do like leaving a little bit to the imagination, but I also wanted more. But I think wanting more in a Saw movie, you don't get that very much. So in that kind of way that you're like, oh, can I actually see the gore?
No.
And I did like the gag that it slides out, and Ryan, who's been passed out from the pain, wakes up only to see that and immediately starts screaming.
That was fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I did like that trap pretty well, and I think his body looked pretty fantastic as he got like spit out. The actual like attack is really like CG and not that great. Right.
But the end result I thought looked real cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Edgar Munson is now missing. John Kramer's casket is exhumed, and inside is who? Edgar Munson.
Edgar Munson's body.
His body. Who put him in Jigsaw's casket?
Mm-hmm.
And I admit that was kind of fun. That was kind of cool.
It was fun. It was one of those like, well, how did they get that in there and then like cover up the ground? And not in this way where I'm like, well, actually, but I'm more just like, okay, well, how'd you do that? Like that's cool. How did you, made me kind of excited. But then I started thinking about how like, what a great chance for like another trap. If not just like bomb to blow everyone up because Jigsaw is quote unquote not a murderer.
Yeah.
What if when you opened it, it just like flung the body out. So then you got to chase after the body only to find that it's not Jigsaw. And
slingshot it or something.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. Or just something like it was a neat reveal, but it also would have been cool if it sort of tied into something as well.
Sure.
But but it was still, this reveal. You're like, okay, they're going to it's going to be Jigsaw or it's going to be empty. And then it's neither. And I like that.
Cop finds a layer, body flies down with a card and just says, and then there was two. Now this layer was...
They go to Eleanor's studio. Because they're like, fuck it, it's Eleanor. It's this weirdo tattoo lady. Let's go investigate. And they get in there and they see all the traps. Right. They're like, well, something's up. Halloran notices, like these wooden panels on the wall. Like there's a gap. I wonder if there's a secret room. And he opens it up. And inside that room is a bunch of Jigsaw news clippings.
Right.
And I like this idea that Eleanor had this studio where she was constructing traps, the Jigsaw traps, and then was like, well, I better have this secret room so no one knows that I'm into Jigsaw.
I know. Absolutely. It was just like, I don't want them to know that I actually clipped paper clips.
Yeah, that would be weird. Anyway, back to welding this death mask.
Right.
But as soon as Halloran turns on the hanging bulb, a flayed body comes flipping down. I like that reveal and a chance to actually sort of, again, it didn't linger on it too long. It gave you like just enough to see like this body is horribly mangled.
Yes.
Which that was well done.
Taken from, where was the body taken from? It was taken from the original trap. See, I guess I'm just like, this is where we have to get into it at the end, maybe.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it is absolutely 100% is Mitch. There's no way it could be anyone else other than Mitch. It's Mitch. They find Mitch's body. It couldn't possibly be anyone else's body. It's Mitch.
But Mitch, yeah. He's so mangled.
But then there's a note that says, and then there were two.
Right.
And like, well, that's even worse.
So Logan tries to convince the cop that Halloran is the one who's setting everything up. And Hunt is evidently a part of internal affairs. I got excited because internal affairs are always the guy that demands badges and guns. Did not happen.
One of these times we'll get a badge and gun scene.
I know. One of them. Yeah.
Keith Hunt goes to arrest Logan because he's like, well, you know something or are in on it. Right. We have photos of you with the studio thing. And he's like, okay, here, like, put the handcuffs on me and then come into my house and I'll explain it to you. Which was a weird choice, but okay, fine.
Totally, yeah.
And lays out this whole thing, how it's probably Halloran because he's a piece of shit and he's bad and Eleanor's good and like knows that Keith is a part of IA. Mm-hmm. This just tells me it's absolutely not Halloran because they're not going to do the Hoffman twice. They're not going to go like, oh, guess what? It's another Hoffman. They're not going to do that. So then I start thinking about the movie and I'm immediately put it together. Right. But which is never good if I'm able to figure it out. But,
sure. They do match the bullet in months into Halloran's gun. That seems like a pretty solid piece of evidence.
Because he's like, take me back to the morgue. Halloran told everyone to fire at the handle or fire at the remote. You didn't look where Halloran was shooting. What's Halloran's gun? Oh, it's this kind of gun. Ah, look, here's the bullet from that kind of gun. That's what we pulled out of him.
Right. Eleanor finds the farm. I do like it when she says that she really wants to see the trap play out. So
she's still obsessed.
Yeah, Halloran is staking them out, follows them to the farm.
This drove me nuts because the reason she found out where the trap is that the first body had traces of Ojeski's disease, I believe is what it's called.
Right.
Which is like a disease that pigs get. And if pigs get it, you have to take care of all the pigs. Like it's all like mad cow disease almost.
Yeah.
But like, she's like, I wonder if I can localize that. Well, she localizes it and is able to figure out where it is. And it's a pig farm previously owned by the Tuck family. Mm-hmm. Jill Tuck's family owned a pig farm.
Exactly.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they have? Yeah. So I enjoyed, I got a big kick out of that. So like, that's the kind of stupid retconning I like.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Sure, she owns a pig farm.
Yeah, especially with the dumb pig masks and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. That sort of like sufficiently hand waves that away enough that I'm like, fine, cool. Yeah, pigs, great.
Anna finds her way through a door in the barn, leaving Ryan, but is then immediately stabbed by a pig mask guy with a syringe. She wakes up. Both her and Ryan are chained to a floor. Someone in a mysterious hoodie is preparing a trap, and booyah, it's John Kramer.
It is John Kramer. Tobin Bell himself, still
unmistakable.
Got the stupid little landing strip goatee. Looking a little bit older.
Back to his old tricks. They're going to play a game.
He's Jigsaw.
He talks Ryan through a bunch of crimes that he committed, like basically like a life of crime. Like you did a bunch of stupid shit when you were a kid. I'm not forgiving it, but I'm just like, all right.
Well, again, it's one of those stories like, well, so what you caused a crash and you get this flashback of Ryan sitting in the back of some sort of convertible, drinking, sitting back up, being a jackass. And his friends his friend who was driving the car is like, hey, buddy, stop it. His friend turns to try to stop him and loses control of the car. Like Ryan goes flying out of the car and his friend crashes. How would Jigsaw know any of that?
Any of this. Yeah.
Like fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's more interesting when, like in the first one, where it is, well, how would he know that? Versus when you've spent 7 other movies explaining how he knows things, or, you know, really getting into like this intricate of how everything works. When you have a thing this glaring, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
That's dumb. If you never bother to explain it, if you're just like, no, he just knows things.
I can buy that.
It's like Jason bilocating. You just like, yeah, okay, I guess he can do that. But because it spends so much time explaining, when they don't explain stuff, it seems real stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And when he has like multiple other accomplices that are just basically like out there just being like, you know, Timmy, hot reporter on the beat, you know, trying to get you info back. This is
my new acolyte Scoop.
Scoop.
But like there's no way anyone would have ever known that unless like somehow he confessed to a therapist. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Like I would have to make up a whole movie in my head and it's dumb. But yeah, he's like, Ryan, you're a complete piece of shit. I hate you. And hey, guess what, Anna? I know who you are, because she recognizes him when he pulls back the hood. She's like, John Kramer. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I was your neighbor. And your baby cries a lot. And chemo was rough for me. One night I was drawing a picture of a trike.
As you do.
Yeah, and I heard your baby crying, and it's revealed that her husband didn't roll over and kill the baby. She, in like postpartum depression, suffocated the baby and then blamed her husband for it and set him up. And he went to jail or a mental institution and then hung himself.
Right. Which is all pretty awful.
Yeah, yeah. That is grim.
Some terrible, terrible stuff right there.
Yeah. I also like that. Was he planning to build the trike drawing really threw me, but
exactly.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, but what you guys needed to figure out is that you want to be free, but you've been doing this backwards. And here's your, like, I'll give you like one more game. And he just pulls out a shotgun.
Right. Yeah.
Look, I like that visual joke of like, for as complicated as everything else, but he's like, and here's a gun. Mm-hmm. And he's like,
the best games are the simplest.
Best games are the simplest. Yes. And he holds up a shell and he's like, this is your key to freedom, loads it into the shotgun, puts it on a table, and then leaves. Anna is like, well, I got to kill you. That's what he means.
Right.
And as she's pointing the gun at Ryan's like, wait, he said we were doing it backwards. And the gun when she fires the gun, it fires back through, it's reverse. So it fires through the back of the gun, killing Anna. And Ryan realizes that in the shell were the keys to
their shackles.
You see in a flashback, Kramer putting them into the shell.
Yeah.
Don't know why we need the flashback for that.
Right.
I got it.
At this point, we know.
Yeah.
But lest we forget, as soon as, the audience is wondering how John Kramer is standing before us, we get, I think, the dumbest flashback in all of Saw, which is...
Were it not for a careless mistake by a resident at the hospital I was in, my cancer could have been diagnosed a lot sooner.
And my first thought was literally, well, A, this is the dumbest hand-wavy thing I think I've ever seen. B, it just reminded me of Dr. Hibbert accidentally holding up Homer's x-ray and covering up the crayon in his nose.
Yeah.
Or in his brain, in my literal favorite Simpsons episode of all time.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, I was always holding the x-ray this way and I didn't notice the crayon in your nose. So this doctor just mislabeled his cancer x-rays.
Someone in this tech got his, mislabeled his x-ray compared to someone else's, so they could have found his cancer earlier. Retcons the whole thing where the problem was that Dr. Gordon just didn't give a shit.
Right.
Not that his cancer was too far along.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had done that, if they had gone all the way and just been like, I never actually had cancer, but I started down this road and now I'm here, that would be something. I would at least be like, this is dumb, but you went for it.
Right, yeah.
Fine. But no, it was just like, no, I would have had 3 more months or something.
Sure.
Which I'm sure if you are dying of cancer, you want that. But it still was like this big reveal just felt like not much.
Well, also, we fully saw him in part 2 and 3, laying in a hospital bed in his lair, all laid up with advanced cancer, etc. I don't know the deep stages of cancer, but at the same time, this is how you're trying to convince us that he's still alive. But again, twisty coming up, which is supposed to be more impactful than not.
So we're back in with Logan in Eleanor Bonneville. And they're making an assault on the barn.
Yep.
They find the initial Buckethead Jigsaw, the Buckethead circular saw trap. They're like, oh, there's blood. Oh man, look at this. This is crazy. They find the other traps. They find the big spinning spiral trap. They are while they're there, they're ambushed by Halloran.
Yep.
Eleanor is able to run away. Halloran is drugged. He's like goes through a doorway and just kind of like Anna gets drugged.
Yes, and then Halloran and Logan wake up in this like elaborate clamps around their neck, like they look, kind of out of Star Trek or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can tell pretty quickly before they even turn on, they're like laser cutters. So they're kind of like up in the ante here with like things that will saw through you faster.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
This ain't your daddy's saw.
Right.
This is laser saw.
Kramer's voice starts over the speaker. You were the final two players of the game. Both of them have to confess something. And this did make me laugh, actually, when Halloran says, I'll go first, and then immediately punches the other button. That was almost like a slapstick joke. That worked for me. And of course, the lasers start going on Logan's collar, and it ends up like, completely like shining onto him. And immediately I was just like, where's all the like head explodey on this? I don't know if I buy this,
because Logan admits, because the whole thing is to like confess your sins. And Logan's like, I was the one that switched the x-rays. I'm so sorry. I was stupid. It was me. And then the lasers, they don't stop. They still like go over his face and onto his neck, and this blood starts shooting out, and he falls over and dies. And then Halloran's like, "Yay, I won!" But then the lasers on his collar start going off, and they start firing up, and this looks neat.
Firing up to the ceiling was kind of cool.
And as dumb as I think this whole thing kind of is, like there was some neat looking stuff in here, and so it fires up, and he's seeing there's burning holes in the ceiling, and he's like starts confessing his own sins about how he let people go. This is why people were suspecting Halloran, because Munson was an informant of his. That he like let go before. He's let perps walk. He's gotten innocent people in jail. He's a bad cop, and so he confesses all this, and it's like, people lost their lives. I did it. It was me. And the laser shut off, and Logan gets back up and is like, ha 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 ha. It was me this whole time. Here's a recording of you admitting that, and now I'm going to murder you. So Logan's been the Jigsaw. I don't care. Logan's been the Jigsaw.
Wasn't that just as thrilling as when Tobin Bell stood up at the end of part one?
Yeah, it was just as good.
Just get as excited right there? No, not at all. Like So I texted John last night or in a group chat that we're in, and I was just like, once the twist got revealed, I just stopped taking notes because I was like, fuck this movie. Like, this is so dumb. I can't even like relate all the step-by-step bullshit of this, because now we're at a 10-year separation. Yeah. It was going along with what Michael was saying in one of our last episodes with what he hates so much about like the editing in a film being for the audience and not for the characters within the film. Yeah. And now this is 10 years removed. Yeah. Yeah. We're so we find two separate films.
Yeah. That the people in the traps were indeed the traps that this early trap that John Saw did, that he after Cecil in the chair fell apart, he went, okay, well, the problem is that I tried to do a chair. What I need to do is do a whole barn full of traps that are very sophisticated and look nothing like anything else I've done. Oh, also, I'm going to spring for HDTV for this one. Not any of my other traps. And Logan explained his plan is like, I just recreated Kramer's tests with criminals that you let go to see if I was worthy. So you just copied him. You just copied his stuff. And it's revealed that also that he is a Jigsaw acolyte. He was the sleepy guy in the first first trap that we saw.
John decided I shouldn't have to die over an honest mistake. He gave me a second chance.
And I couldn't tell if it meant that he just went, hey, buddy, sometimes I don't have my coffee. I make mistakes too. Or is it like that the trap didn't work the way he wanted it to? And so he was like, well, okay, I guess I'll fix you up. Like, this one's on me. But whatever, either way, it's so fucking stupid that you have yet another acolyte because we eventually like they built the fucking bear trap face thing together.
Right.
They
hand wave it away and they say something like, John decided not to punish me because of an honest mistake.
Oh, from an honest mistake. Yeah.
Because I accidentally like relabeled his type of thing. Like
that is good. All Jigsaw does. What are you talking about?
Right.
You know, I came back from the war a broken man. Like John helped me by almost murdering me. John helped me. And so we worked together. And I wanted to see, like, for some reason, I waited this long after John's death to decide to follow in his footsteps.
Right.
So, yeah, this is a big punishment. This has all just been to get to you, Halloran. And it's no longer game over. It's I speak for the dead.
Yeah.
That he's getting vengeance for all the people Halloran is wrong, which is dumb because that's intercut with John telling him, you taught me it's not about vengeance, Logan. I learned that from you. And then it's like, Logan's like, you know what this is vengeance.
Right.
Just dumb as fuck. And if I may just take just a moment. You know, Hoffman, I said some things last episode, and I realize now how wrong I was. I miss you, baby. Please come back, Hoffman. You were so much better than this Logan guy. Come back, baby, please.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so fucking stupid. And like I said, I figured out because, okay, it's not going to be Halloran because they're not going to do Hoffman again. It's not going to be Eleanor because they've set her up as a ringer like too much, and this movie isn't going to be like, isn't stylish enough to be like, no, that's the thing, but it's less about the mystery, more just about this. By virtue of her being like no characters, I'm like, well, it's going to be this jackass,
right?
And it sucks.
Oh
my
god,
such a bummer. It's such a bummer, and because it starts raising all these questions of like, so how did he slip away to like leave these bodies places with no one noticing?
Yep,
because he's got a little girl at home, which they kind of like just that was a really
scene.
Yeah, that was an element that really wasn't necessary. But so he was able to like dig up the body and all this stuff. And then so where's Jigsaw's body? And so I wonder, like, is it somewhere at the farm? And he's got he's got it like strapped to something and a baseball glove in its hand. He's playing catch with it like a dad. Like
I hope so.
It's like the reverse Psycho where it's the dad to the mom.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't enough that Logan is just a very uninteresting character and boring, whatever. But it was that like it follows the Jigsaw or it follows the Saw movies thing of like playing with time of like maybe this has already happened. But it was just such a cheat. That
it was cheat. It's not even a movie.
The revealing too that like this had already happened was like this revelation of like, oh my God, like we've been trying to track this thing, but it's too late. The trap is closing around you.
Yeah.
This main character we've been following. And when you're expecting Halloran to be the bad guy anyway, and you don't really care about him. And it's like, no, it's been 10 years later. And I just like conveniently, they all died in the exact same way. So I was able to do that.
Yeah.
What? It was
goodness.
It was real rough. Did not care for it.
Worst twist ever, I think. Yeah, this is a bad one. Let's before we bring this in for a landing, let's honor our dead real quick. Buckethead, played by Unknown. Sawed in the face by circular saw. Asthmatic woman, played by Esther Tybalt, died from asphyxiation. Carly, played by Brittany Allen, injected with acid. Carly lookalike, played by Lauren Betty, injected with acid. Edgar Munson, played by Josiah Black, shot in the chest. John Kramer's nephew, played by Balston Camilleri, hit by truck. Mitch, played by Mandela Van Peebles, mutilated by coils. Mitch lookalike, played by James Gomez, mutilated by coils. Ryan's childhood friends, played by Unknown, 3, incinerated in car explosion. Anna and Matthew's baby, played by unknown baby actor, smothered by pillow. Matthew, played by Edward Rootle, hung himself. Anna, played by Laura Vandervoort, shotgun backfire. Ryan, played by Paul Brownstein, bled out from the leg stump. Detective Halloran, played by Callum Keith Rennie, head sliced in 8 pieces by laser cutter collar. And I had a hard time picking out who died in this because, like, yes, everybody deserves their honor for an on-screen death, but like some stuff is old, some stuff is new. Like I couldn't tell like if I was supposed to like count the old people who died versus the new people who died.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, they both died. Like they're listed on IMDb as like Carly lookalike. Like
okay.
that's
so
the
does
credit.
That count
so
for our death count? I guess
that
so.
counts. Yeah, because 2 different people died.
All right,
Carly
gotcha.
and the woman who also got stabbed in the neck.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Fine. Yeah.
And I'll say the movie does telegraph some of this stuff because you do see in the body of the Carly they find, there's only one syringe. When he takes out the bullet, when Logan convinces like Keith Hunt, he's like, let's see what bullet is there. When you see him take out the bullet, you can see it's a different bullet than what he shows him later.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like little things like that. I'm like I guess I'd rather you do things like that rather than it be. This was my problem with Glass Onion, where it's be like the mystery is just you didn't tell me things. That's not a mystery. That's just you. That's just a delayed information. Yeah, it's just withholding information. It's not that interesting. And so you're like, aha, no, it turns out it was all this stuff that no one would have any idea of knowing. Yeah. I just think is a pretty weak way to go about it.
Absolutely.
It feels like a cheat, and that sucks. Like I'm not carried along by anything to make it like, okay, it's fine. It's just like, oh, you just wasted my time.
And those little things that they slip in there, like obviously they did that because they thought that they were like covering their tracks to make this all make sense. But I still got so frustrated by the ending that I don't care that they place those things.
Yeah.
To make it make sense because it still doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Not a good one.
Really, this might be my least favorite.
So far, yeah.
It's rough. Like it's slick. And I think I don't mind the slickness, but I do think like it's tensionless. Like it doesn't have the same, like it's not scary or when the traps are happening, I don't have that same kind of feeling. And it's not the like, okay, obviously they're just going to die. They can't escape from this. But it just sort of, because I was sort of like trying to figure out when exactly this was happening at a certain point, I lost interest in that. And just like the way they were put together, it just didn't have that same tension that the other ones did.
Yeah.
I am curious if you are a fan of the Saw movies, how you felt about this, because this is while being at its core very true to the Saw formula, it's also a wild departure.
Right.
And so I'm curious how the community reacts to it.
Right. Yeah, let us know, please. You know, again, as we always say, like, please tell me why you like this, whether it works for me or not. Like, I'm very interested in that.
Because I listened to Spiral, the official Saw podcast, or the official Saw podcast that was released in the lead up to Spiral, and they interviewed some dude, and I'm not going to bother to look up his name because I don't care. That he was like, his whole thing was he was a big Saw movie guy all the way from who knows when.
Yeah. And
like made videos about it, whatever. They all seem to really enjoy this movie, which
good for
granted,
them.
It's the official Saw podcast, so I'd be surprised if they're like, I didn't really.
Right. Yeah.
It's not like everything's glowing, but he also liked it and talked about how when you're doing a franchise, be it Saw or Seinfeld, you want to see. Yeah, that's not what a franchise is. That's a TV show.
It's not a franchise.
It's not a franchise. It's a TV show. And this is largely like it's written like a TV show. And one of the appeals I can see, and we can probably get into it more in the wrap up of the earlier ones, is like, all that fun, like theorizing and all this stuff, how that's changed in the, as social media and all that stuff is grown. But also like there's 10 years that happened in between.
Right.
You're trying to appease the fans, but then you're also trying to get new people in. And I think it really like tried so hard to be twisty. It didn't think about what exactly it was doing.
Sure.
It looked at like, okay, well, it's almost like they went for focus group. They're like, well, people like group traps. People like police stuff. People like twists. Done. Let's just make sure, as long as we got those, it doesn't really matter what's in those boxes. We just need to have those boxes.
Sure. Yeah. And then we got this. So we only have one more left.
Yeah.
Spiral, which seems to be the I just think it's like the weirdest one on his face, which I have not seen Spiral, so I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing it.
This is one, if you remember the episode we did about Saw 1, that Becky Dark remembered that she saw it when we mentioned the title, which does not fill me with hope.
Does not bode well, no. Especially for someone who enjoys Saw, But I
feel like it's got to go up. I feel like it has to.
It's got to go up from here.
I would be somewhat interested if they'd like leaned into it and made Logan and Eleanor like John Amanda. Like if they just sort of like reconfigured it, but like because she's like this punky kind of thing, but it turns out she figures out it's him and she's into it or something like that. Would be someone interesting. It seems like maybe they're trying to go in that direction because they hand wave it away at the end that because she has escaped that he's like she'll provide me my alibi. I don't fully understand what that means, but you know whatever. It's apparently good enough for you.
They'll even keep the same characters. To be
I don't know because enough time has passed. You know we'll see because also who knows when it's going to take place. Right. It could take place in 2023 or it could take place in 3033 and it's revealed it's 2023 the whole time, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So woof. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to wrapping it up.
Yes.
And then doing a wrap up.
Yeah.
You know, and
do a double wrap up
and we'll kind of figure out where to go from there. But we're almost through the tunnel of razor wire with the Saw franchise. And I know people seem to be enjoying it. So yeah, thanks for everybody talking about this on Instagram and like letting us know, like I said at the top of the show, like letting us know that they're watching along. I love it when people watch along with us and everything. Yeah, so that's pretty great. Yeah. So John, where can we find you again recently at John Alex Hate Stuff?
On the next episode of John Alex Hate Stuff, we're going to be talking about the new Dungeons & Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves, with Chris Pine and Hugh Grant and presumably some dragons. So yeah, come check that out over at John and Alex Hate Stuff.
And if you like short horror fiction, check out Please Leave podcast. We're actually going to... we're about ready to go make a short film version of the episode Dark Mommy, just in case you're at all interested in taking a listen to that and seeing what I'm going to be doing for the next week or so.
I am very excited for that.
In the middle of nowhere, Midwest. Anyway, we will see you next week for what it's not even Saw 9. It's called like the Book of Spiral. Yeah, Spiral.
The Book of Saw.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So this will be a Spiral podcast next week, not a Saw podcast. It'll be a Spiral podcast.
The Spiral Cast.
Yeah. So join us next week for the Spiral Cast, episode 1, starring Chris Rock. We're rebranding. It's fine. Yeah. It'll be all right.
Our powers combined will become Chris Rock.
Exactly. All right. We'll see you next week, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod and on Twitter at Hurt a Bit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.